Okay, good morning, everyone. On yesterday, we talked, I'm going to do a recap and try to finish, uh, kind of go over the proverb verse that we looked at. But I have to first begin with 1 Samuel in chapter 16. Uh, on yesterday, we looked at those verses, primarily verses 1 through 12. I guess we'll go ahead and say, because we skipped some originally. But what this is referring to is God has rejected Saul as king, and God has chosen another king for himself, and he sends Samuel to Bethlehem to anoint one of the sons of David. But he does not tell Samuel which of the sons that he is going to has chosen for himself. And Samuel goes and he consecrates the elders of the city, consecrates uh, Jesse, who's David's father, and he has him to bring his sons, and all seven of the sons pass before him, and Samuel rejects them. And it is David that he asks them, "Is this all of your children?" He sends for David, and David comes along, and he said, "This is he," and he anoints him as king. Well, in the midst of this, the conversation that God has with Samuel, the rest of the city, if you will, is not privy to. So, what God said. Okay.
There's people coming on.
Okay. What God says to Samuel is, I do not look at the outer appearance. I don't look at their height or their stature. I look at the hearts, whereas men look at the outer appearance of each other. And we saw something there. We looked at that because the verses specifically made reference to David's appearance as though David stood out in a different manner, outward appearance than the rest of them. And we use that as a catalyst to say this may or may not have been the beginning of racism. This may or may not have been the fall of the African as to being the recognizing himself as being the image of God, the image of this Creator. But what it does indeed point out to us is, regardless of the state that we find ourselves in, or we have gone through, and there have been brutal times, that is not minimized at all. What I am saying, though, is we are responsible for who we are. It is no coincidence that this is written this way, and it just further shows us the spiritual nature of who we are and the responsibility that comes with that. So I think this too is a part of our journey and our uncovering of truth, and really uncovering our own souls and getting to know who we are. Now, I use that term because if I fast forward to any questions about what I just said first before I go to Proverbs? Okay. I use that term because we went to Proverbs 19, verse 8, to kind of summarize where we are and what we have experienced in the last year or so with our study. The elevation of our study, if you will notice, has been uncovering things that we have not seen before. And that verse 8 says, "He who gets wisdom loves his own soul." That soul is talking about the inner part of you. It's talking about knowing yourself, getting to know who you are. And that is what we've been doing for the last year or so. So I saw this as an accumulation of everything coming together. And that term of the "he who gets wisdom," get talks about to acquire or to buy or to obtain something. So it's talking about you reaching a point where that the more you see, more being the spiritual part of it, that it costs you something to get there. It costs you your beliefs. It costs you your value system. It costs you those things that you have learned in the religious settings that you have to let go. So, and we I think talked about the relationship between wisdom and the relationship between wisdom and understanding, and wisdom being this, not being earthly type wisdom. This is being something you obtain by submission. This is something that you attain by meditation. This is something that you obtain by becoming one with the Creator. And this is a continuous thing. This is a practice or a breathing, understanding the importance of breath and who you are. So he who loves his own soul, what you see when you get to that point, and I mentioned soul is knowing thyself, you see that self is every self. You see that there is no separation of you and any other man out there. So you recognize the responsibilities of who you are, and recognize that if I can back up for a minute, returning to the beginning has nothing to do with just Ron. This has everything to do with uniting man and changing mankind into what he was intended to be. And how do I do that? I do that by changing myself. I do that by concentrating on who and what I am, and those voices in me, those ambitions, those egos, those thoughts that seem to run in their own direction, bringing all that under submission. And again, I'm reminded as I speak of this is the equally yoked thing, that being yoked with my spiritual self, being yoked with my soulful self. And then the second half of that, the keeps understanding will find good. We talked about this. Well, the keeps is talking about the things that you value, the things that you have captured, the things that you observe while you're on this journey. And the whole summation of it all is the good, though. The good talks about fulfilling something, fulfilling that which it was designed to be. So, and finding it profitable that you found the purpose of the thing. So the profit that you find and the fulfilling of that it was designed to be is you were designed to be the human, so that you can become spiritual and you can show men how to be spiritual. So being designed what you to be is you are the link between the world. You are the link between what is spiritual and what is human, and you are the catalyst for keeping man or bringing man back to his Creator. So that's what we looked at on yesterday, and I'm just going kind of fast. It's kind of a summation. Is there any questions or comments or anything that I may have left out? I think Barbara added a piece there yesterday. I thought that added value to the linking of the relationship of understanding and wisdom. But anybody questions or comments?
I thought I still saw her Jeep at the.
Did someone say something?
Ron, this is Barbara. Good morning, everyone. One of the things that you said also, which is key to all of this, is that we have to love and forgive ourselves. And I think you referenced back to when Linda and Audrey talked about this, that we have to do that as part of the changing of ourselves in order to be able to affect mankind.
That is thank you. Yeah, that is a big key. That is a big key. When that was spoken of the other week, it really resonated with me. I didn't quite understand it at the time, but I knew it was something there, and I see it a lot clearer now. That is the key. Loving and forgiveness starts with self, and that is not in a selfish way. That is for mankind. That is to clear the path. That is to bring light to self so that others may become light as well. So yes, thank you.
I think that, let me see first if there are questions, any other questions or comments, because I think that's a linchpin to that will transition us to where I'm headed, okay?
Okay.
We also talked about what's going on out there. And I'm sorry I missed the first, you might have already said this, Ron, but we couldn't get on. It just told us to wait to be added to the conference, so it took a minute. But anyway, we talked about all of the violence that's going on and all of the, not only the violence, but nature, the chaos in nature with the floods and the fires and all over the world, not just in the droughts. That we've got to be in sync with the universe by knowing ourselves. And when we are in sync with the universe, that'll take care of the earth. The earth will come into sync with everything else when we're in sync. It reminds me of the verse that talks about all nature's waiting for us to get it right, and it'll automatically happen. It'll come into sync when we do it.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Thank you.
Ron, this is Audrey. Good morning. It also reminds me of what I talked about a while ago about the struggle of opposites, that duality, because we tend to take on personas as opposed to really looking inside to find ourselves. And yeah, we've not only have we created, the African created a duality, he created a tripality, a quadrality, whatever, because so much stuff was piled on top of what we originally believed and knew. And our relationship with the Creator was just sort of lost in there. But it also reminds me of what you're talking about, going back to the beginning, reminds me of the verse, where the Creator says, I know the plans I have for you. So nothing's ever lost. We just need to get back to it. We need to find our way back to it. And that's the main point I want to make. Nothing's lost. We didn't lose it. We won't, the only way we won't find it is if we don't let ourselves.
And you're exactly right, and you reminded me of something that verse that he who gets wisdom. Getting is talking about obtaining something, a purchase, but it's really talking about who turns back, who comes back to what you put your focus on this. You are going to have to it's talking about buying it because you're going to have to release what has been comfortable to you. And all Audrey is talking about is we've come to a place in our I don't know what word to use, but the human has slid down or diminished himself to a place where he's become comfortable with in his not recognizing who he is. So when they're talking about getting this, That's what she's saying. It's there for you. It is there for us, waiting for us to turn and focus on who we are. Remember, soul talking about knowing thyself. So this is not lost. This is not impossible, although it may seem difficult at times when we, as I said yesterday, I clogged myself with some of the stuff that I see that's external that kind of turns me off. But I bring myself back, if not through meditation, by calling and talking to somebody. So this is all obtainable, and that's a good point to make. That's where we are right now.
Ron, one of the things in Proverbs 19 and 8, wisdom stands for here is the inner man as well. So when we talk about finding it or saying that it is always accessible, it is literally equating wisdom to going in and having a deep and intimate understanding and relationship with the self. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And that's what I was saying yesterday. We're in a beautiful place. We're in a good place, and we're just trying to figure out now. We're staying the course, and I don't know. I hope we have a great appreciation of all the stuff that is being revealed to us. That's what tells me that we're where we are. Because if you think about it, a lot of these verses or a lot of this we've studied in the past, but it's not. We're showing so much of a new thing as that we're showing more of what is there. More is being revealed to us. But and as you said, Sheldon, it all comes together in knowing who we are, knowing self. Anyone else? Questions or comments? Pastor?
Yes, sir. I want to, before I start talking about some things that have been shown, I want to read what I deem to be a transitional statement based upon what has been said this morning in previous lessons. It has not been lost, as Audrey said. Who we are has not been lost. And I think that in order for us to see how we are have been truly seen by those who subjugated us, or at least made every effort to cause us to continue the subjugation of ourselves. This was written in the 1700s by a European explorer, Count Constantine de Volney. This is what he wrote when he went to Egypt. The ancient Egyptians were true Negroes of the same type of all native-born Africans. Just think that this race of black men today and our slaves and the object of our scorn is the very race to which we owe our arts, sciences, and even the use of speech. Just imagine, finally, that it is in the midst of peoples who call themselves the greatest friends of liberty and humanity that one has approved the most barbarous slavery and questioned whether black men have the same intelligence as white men. That is the true nature of what was seen in us from the beginning of our encounters with Europeans. And it had a totally opposite journey from that downwards. All of that turned into an effort to hide from us who we are. And because of the nature of loving kindness, allowed a barbarous mentality to creep in and remove us from being on the stage where humans stood. And what I would like to talk to us about today is just that. What is a human? I believe that we are not humans at all. When I say we, I'm talking about the whole group who we reference as mankind. Would you mute your phone, please? And the reason that is my belief is because of what I have been shown a human is. I'm not offering a supposition. I'm stating what is. Normally, or in past times, I would say, what if? I'm not speaking of what if today. I'm saying what is. In order for us to understand the nature of the human, I believe that it is necessary to understand the nature of the creation of who we are. I do see that we have not been shown the intricacies or some of the minute details of who we are. And what I mean by that is this. In the beginning, when creation occurred, the scripture says in the second chapter of Genesis, verse 7, that the Lord God took the dust of the earth and formed Adam and breathed the breath into his face, and it became a living soul. That's what that Genesis statement says. The statement that Ron read from Proverbs, he that giveth wisdom loveth his own soul. He that keepeth understanding shall find good. If you understand the nature of the soul, then you will have found the purpose for you to have been created. You would then find, I think Ron said, the original use for which you were designed. We do not know the reason we were made the way that we are, because we have relied on religious sources to give us the understanding of who we are, as opposed to seeking through the techniques of meditation and the exchange of wisdom and understanding. What we have done is stood on a platform as individuals speaking to multitudes without having any understanding of what we were saying, without having any understanding of the purpose for our teaching/preaching. The only purpose that we have been given for the receiving of preaching or teaching is so that we could go to this place called heaven and be in a place of paradise forever. No one has ever told us what we would be doing other than being there. No one has told us the true purpose for our being created. It is my belief that what we have been, and I in particular, have been teaching as being spiritual is actually a type of spirit. The reason the words in the Hebrew and the Aramaic and the Arabic and all Semitic languages, the reason the word that reference spirit are the same words for air and breath is because they are a type of spirit. Energy itself is pure spirit, and energy is not breath. Breath is energy, but energy is not breath because energy is more than breath. Energy creates electricity, energy creates force, energy creates breath, so it's more than that. What am I saying to you? If indeed we are beings who are created by Elohim, if we are beings who emanated from the light of all light, then that means that we are pure energy. If we, being spirit only, if we are spirit, then men would be able to travel into the far places of the universe and still be able to breathe, be able to live without having any type of apparatus to produce oxygen. The only reason that this type of breath, this type of spirit, this type of energy is in this body is for the support of this body in this place called Earth. This place called Earth is the place where Adam was given. This is Adam's Garden of Eden. This is the place where this entity that was created in that 2nd chapter and 7th verse was sent to learn how to become Elohim. And in order for it to learn how to become Elohim, it had to have substance from which it was to create. And it had to have substance that it was capable of shaping into the image of Elohim. The substance of which I speak has nothing to do with physical bodies, but it has everything to do with spiritual speech, everything to do with thought and concepts. The molding of thought and concepts is what molds mankind. It's what determines whether or not we are human or whether or not we are animals. When someone does something horrendous, we say that they are acting like an animal. When people move in groups and begin to be brutal towards each other, we say they are acting like animals. The difference between an animal and a human is that the human is always reflective of the attitude of the thing that made it human. And the thing that made it human is Elohim. When the human is reflective of Elohim, that human is exactly the way Jesus was in the earth. How is that? when Jesus came into the earth, Jesus was no different than any other man in the earth. However, when Jesus fully embraced the essence of his purpose, when Jesus recognized the purpose for which he was designed and embraced it, it is at that point that Jesus became human or Son of Man. That's when he became human. He was reflective of everything that a womb has shown him, had created him to be. When we are reflective of that, it is at that point that we become human. Right now, what happened is we took on the attitude, we embraced the concepts of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, more the evil side than the good. Meaning that we embraced a lie, believing that we are supposed to enrich ourselves from the material things in this earth, as opposed to enriching ourselves with the wisdom with which the earth was brought into existence. When we learn how to enrich ourselves with the wisdom that the earth was brought into existence, it is then that we are able to bring order not only to nature, but also to the mindset of this group called humanity. In other words, we are here for the express purpose of transforming the concept of barbarianism into the concept of humanism. And the concept of human is a mirror of who our Creator is. When Adam was created, it says that in its face was blown the breath of, and it became a living soul. It did not say that it was not a soul until it breathed, the breath was received. It said it became a living soul, which means that it was a soul prior to this. If it became a living soul, then that means that every one of what we call individuals, every entity on this earth is of the same soul. The breath was for the benefit of the body, so that that body could embody the soul, so that body could bring into existence a type of peace and harmony that would be reflective of loving kindness of the heart of Elohim. Would you mute your phone, please? Rather than do that, we allowed those who we were supposed to bring to a space of awareness, we allowed them to dominate this earth realm. Those thoughts, those concepts became the dominant forces in this earth realm. And to this day, they are still the dominant forces in this earth. When we began to embrace what loving kindness looks like, what it is, when we began to embrace the reality of forgiveness, it is then that we begin to see a restoration of the man that was brought into the earth from the beginning for the purpose of bringing balance to this earth. When Jesus was in this earth prior to the crucifixion, Jesus moved exactly the way we do. He moved in time. He was confined to the space of time. However, when Jesus was crucified and resurrected, Jesus was able to move beyond time. Right now, we are confined to time. However, when we understand our purpose for being in this earth, it is then that we become the mystics that we were created to be. The reason we were created to be mystics is because a mystic is one who sees beyond what a human is capable of seeing, a physical being, I should say, is capable of seeing. As long as we are in our barbaric, animalistic state, we cannot be mystics. We cannot be humans. Everywhere those perpetuators of the concept of domination and greed, everywhere they went, the first ones that they destroyed were the holy men, the mystics that were in the villages. They did not capture them, they killed them. And there were those who were hidden in plain sight, who slipped through the cracks and were able to live, even though they were brought to this place in slavery, they lived in secret. And the mysticism is the thing that sustained the enslaved while they were in this nation. That mysticism, that understanding of the nature of who we are, was taken away through brutality, and it was replaced with religion. Now, if we look at this through the eyes of what happened with the times of Jesus being in the earth, what do we see? We see that the only way that the Romans were able to control Palestine, they took control of the priests, which were the mystics. And they forced the priests, they cajoled the priests, they gave them riches, they brought them to a place where they got them to buy into a governmental theory of control and manipulation. This is one of the major things that angered Jesus when he went to the temple. Because Jesus says, my Father's house shall be called a house of prayer. What Jesus is saying is, this is the place where you come for contemplation and meditation so you will see who you are. This structure was put here for the purpose of us being reminded of our purpose for being in this earth. And now you have commercialized it. You have made it a place of greed. The priesthood had become one with the government. That is no different than where we are today. We are not taught anything that is unacceptable to the governmental authorities or to the authorities who governed religion / Christianity, Islam, etc. If we take a good look at the religions, the dominant religion, Christianity, Islam, Judaism, we see that they are not rooted in bringing harmony to humanity, they are rooted in barbaric thoughts. They are rooted in greed, selfishness. Any religion in this earth is a religion or is a combination of thoughts that are for the purpose of control. Spirituality, on the other hand, has no confining definitions, nor do they have any confining principles. The principles of spirituality are loving kindness and forgiveness. They cannot be controlled, they cannot be manipulated, they cannot be dominated, and they are never used and cannot be used for the purpose of manipulation or domination. When we see this clearly, it is then that we become a reflection of Elohim. Any questions so far?
That's just wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just want to back you up. I want to make sure I got this. I want to again to go back to when you started and tell me the relationship between the energy and the different types of spirit. You talk about the wind, the air. I want to make sure I got that.
This is what I'm saying. I am saying that if what we call spirit, which is our breath, right? If
Right.
it is life that keeps this body alive, then why is it that this body cannot live in the universe without having apparatus to produce oxygen? If the breath that we breathe is eternal spirit, then why is it cannot keep, if it's life, why is it that it cannot keep this body alive? Why is it that it cannot live in outer space? I am saying that this is a type of spirit. This breath is a type of spirit for the express purpose of sustaining the body in this space, on this earth, until this type of man can become the human that it was supposed to be. And when that happens, we will be just like Jesus. Jesus could live by breathing or not breathing. Jesus, what I mean by that is this. Jesus was able to move from place to place and reconstitute his body. And Jesus said we would be able to do what he did. So if we believe this to be a truth, then being human is reflective of being what Jesus became or showed us what he is after the resurrection. Because what Jesus was saying to us through this resurrection is, when this body is destroyed, if you are one with the Father, you will understand that the destruction of the body is only in the mindset of those with an animalistic nature. The body itself is designed to live forever. And the only way it does that is that it becomes the embodiment of loving kindness, forgiveness, the principles of the kingdom. Once it becomes the embodiment of that, then that's when the human begins to be reflective of what it was supposed to be. Does that help you, Ron?
Yes, it does. Because I found most of when I understood what you were saying, that's extremely empowering. I just missed that part where you were talking about the breath. I want to see the relationship there. I missed that.
I do. I need the question. Are there comments? Are you seeing this?
Yeah, I was also reminded of the something I read. You know, when you talk about becoming angry, it talks about the flaring of the nostrils. It talks about breath and being out of control. And it is through learning how to breathe because, you know, just going into different types of breath, the learning to breathe and the depth of your breathing, the deep breathing and exhaling and the rhythm of the breathing, being in rhythm with self, being in rhythm, that is what takes us to different places. And that is very, very important part of mysticism when you brought that up, is learning to control your breath and control your breathing and being able to see things and journey from that perspective. It's also in mysticism a very important part of your meditations or prayer, however you want to look at that. So that's why I want to make sure I understand breath and the role that it plays.
You can train your body to live longer and longer periods of time without breathing. When I am in a meditative state, there are times when I find myself, when I come out of it, I take a deep breath. I have not been breathing. I remember vividly meditating some years ago, and I was in the den meditating, and Phoebe came into the den where I was, and she called my name frantically because she thought for an instant I was dead because I wasn't breathing, I wasn't moving. And it shook me, and I had to, it took time for me to recalibrate and begin to breathe as I breathe on a normal basis. What am I saying to you? Is that the energy of this type of spirit, breath, is for the purpose of energizing this physical body. And it is a reminder to us that our survival in this realm is not dependent on us. It's dependent on an energy source that's greater than what we can see with our eyes. It's dependent on an energy source that can only be discerned by the eye. The soul cannot be destroyed. The living, when it says a living soul, is talking about living a soul that's given the properties that's necessary for it to sustain itself in the body. That's what that seventh verse is talking about in the second chapter of Genesis. Is that clear?
Yes, I got it.
Anyone else? Any comment or question? Any observation? The reason that we are being shown this is because it is time for us to reclaim our mystic essence. It is time for us to embrace the reality of mysticism. There are those among us who have listened at the teachings and been a part of the teachings and are still struggling to believe that they are Elohim. It is time for the struggle to end. The way the struggle ends is by you speaking to yourself. I am a mystic. I am Elohim. I know who I am. I don't need breath to live because I am life itself. I am life energy, not life breath, life energy. And life energy is inclusive of breath and everything else that it takes. The reason we are able to turn a storm is because we become the dominant energy force in the storm. Not the wind, but the dominant energy force. Wind is blowing all the time, but it is the energy that makes it dangerous. We are that force. I don't expect you to be able to visualize this in a mind that's so finite until it cannot hold an understanding of the essence of who we are. But I do expect you to embrace it with a soul that's very capable of dominating the mind when it tries to talk you out of being who you are. A mind that has been manipulated, a mind that has been indoctrinated to believe that it is less than no matter what it is, no matter what task it faces, no matter what circumstance is brought to it, it is always less than. We have to rise above this concept of less than and understand that we are not less than, we are not more than, we are just who we are. We are the energy force of life. And being the energy force of life, no one other than us is capable of bringing harmony to this earth because it takes life force to do that. If the words that I read to you at the onset are true, and they are, what was seen, what was observed when the European went into Egypt, when he went into Egypt, he saw something. The origin of speech, the origin of art, the origin of science, all of it is right here in the Kushite kingdom. Every bit of it. If all of it emanated there, if the foundation of it is there, then who is it other than what we call God that could teach a man to speak? Where did it come from? Who taught us the sciences? Nobody. We developed them. The creative mysticism of our being showed us what we were able to overcome in terms of this earth realm. We were being taught that you are the gods of this earth. Now act like it. But rather than rely on our mystic nature to bring into being a concept that dominates this earth of righteousness and peace, we did the opposite. We allowed unrighteousness and warlike attitudes to become the dominating force. Never in the history of this earth has there been a greater opportunity for us to stand on the stage and be humans again. And as humans, knowing that a human, hear me and hear me well, a human is Elohim in physical form. And what makes that human is not the physical form. What makes that human are the concepts of Elohim. The form can be human or it can be animal. The concepts are the difference. Loving kindness. We are on a stage of something that's greater than anything we could ever imagine. Love and kindness, forgiveness are not lip service concepts. They are not concepts that are confined to a dictionary, that are set in concrete. They are fluid. They flow. And they are applied based upon the circumstances that we face. You can love someone, but at the same time chastise them. And someone commits the same act, and rather than chastise them with verbal correction or by a spanking, you chastise them by embracing them. So love is never confined to a definition. It flows like the rivers of Egypt. And it always overflows its banks and enriches everything around it. That's who we are. When we see this, we will understand why the Dogon can say, there is a planet that you know nothing of. That's where we came from. We are visited by people from that planet. That's where we know this to be true. But the concept of domination and greed and manipulation that subjugated us says, you don't know what you're talking about, you are ignorant. And lo and behold, based upon the mathematics, the science that was developed by the Africans, telescopes were made powerful enough to see that the Dogon knew what they were talking about. Where did they get the knowledge? They didn't get the knowledge. They are the knowledge. And just as they are the knowledge, so are we. Any questions or comments? Please let me know whether or not this is making sense to you. And I know I'm not expecting you to grasp all of this. I'm not grasping all of it. But I know that. I know that you may come later with questions. That's fine. But is it resonating?
Yes.
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 Thank you. We are not on the precipice of anything. We've talked about being on the precipice of change. We've talked about being crossing into the gateway. We've talked about all of these things. But what I am being shown is not a supposition, it is not a hypothesis, it is a truth. We are the gateway. We are the change. We are everything that we have sought to understand. The electricity that's powering this call is because of who we are. It is energy, but it is a type of energy that's different than the energy that we call breath. However, regardless of the type of energy that it is, it all comes from pure energy source, and that's who we are. That's who we were created to be. That's the understanding that finds good. The wisdom is who we were created to be. The understanding of that wisdom is what brings us to a place to understand that we must embrace the purpose for which we were created, the purpose for which we were designed. We were designed to live in these bodies on this earth until we reconcile ourselves with the reality of our purpose and bringing awareness to the concepts of evilness so that they can become concepts of righteousness. If there are no questions or comments, I'm done. If you have questions or comments, make a note of them, and we can address them tomorrow. And I do expect and know some of you especially will be contemplating what has been said today and entering states of meditation. And I say to you, without equivocation, that the things that have been spoken to you today will be expanded in your understanding. The nuggets of wisdom that have flowed through your ears have touched your soul. And your soul is resonating with it, meaning that your soul is in rhythm with what's being said. And I will no longer speak from an animalistic point of view, meaning that we cannot keep saying, what if? That's doubt. I know what I am saying is true. I know that we were robbed of believing that we are mystics. I know that the holy man was snatched from our presence because with them gone, it was easier to subjugate us. I know this. And the men who stand in those places where holy men stood are not men of holiness. They are not men separated for the purpose of bringing man to its creator. They are men separated for the purpose of sustaining the government in this earth, for sustaining religion. They are men who justify war crimes, who justify wars, period, who justify greed, who justify greed by saying you, naming and claiming, who justify greed by telling you that if you are broke, God is not blessing you. No. Brokenness is not about how much money you have. Brokenness is about not knowing who you are. If money makes you whole, then why do rich men kill themselves? Brokenness is about embracing something that's foreign to you and becoming it. Brokenness is what allows our kids to kill each other. Brokenness is what makes us afraid of our own people. Brokenness is what causes us to embrace racist concepts and try to justify them. Brokenness is a black child rejecting a black doll and embracing a white doll. That's brokenness. Brokenness is joining those who are criticizing critical race theory, CRT. That's brokenness. Wholeness is about knowing who you are and embracing the reality of who you are. Believe you me, those in power know who you are. That is the reason everything we talk about as to who we are is always criticized as playing the race card. That is to shut us up. Why? Because when we get a view of who we are, embrace it, and stand on that stage as humans, everything changes. We are not on a world stage. We are on a universal stage. And the stage that we stand on, we are also the stage itself. There is absolutely nothing that exists that we are not. Nothing. Because nothing exists without energy. And nothing is brought into a physical form without science, without art, without mathematics, without speech. And we are the originators of all of that in this earth. And if that is not God, if that is not Elohim, if that is not Allah, if that is not Allah, if that is not Yahweh, if that is not Jehovah, who is it? That's who we are. We are everything that exists. We are existence itself. And never entertain anything that tells you any differently, because the scriptures does not. It's the philosophies of men who seek to dominate that have convinced us of something different. I know I said I was finished. I thought I was. Any questions or comments? Observation. Thank you. Have a great day.
Bye. Have a good.
Have a great day.
Bye. Bye.
Bye. Talk to you tomorrow.